number 10, oil needed, Iron Man. Back in Iron Man's early days, his suits weren't up to par with what we're familiar with today. In Avengers issue 2, right after the team's inaugural issue, the group fights Space Phantom, who intends on invading Earth with an alien force. Phantom comes to the planet first and ends up impersonating members of the Avengers team, which causes a lot of confusion and fighting within the team. The group has caught on to Space Phantom's shtick, and Thor incapacitates him by using his weather manipulation abilities to create a rainstorm that causes Iron Man's suit to rust over. Now, to be fair, it was Space Phantom impersonating Tony Stark here, and technically he was the one to suffer the loss, but considering that he was mimicking the hero, that's a pretty bad design flaw to bring to light. Needless to say, we're glad that Tony caught on to that before any real damage occurred to the beloved hero. Up next, number 9, Batwoman as a plot device. Always a shame when a superhero, especially a female superhero, is used merely as a plot device to further the story of another character, usually a male. It's really the basis of the women in refrigerators argument. Don't know it? Google it. You should. Anyway, this was the case with the initial Batwoman Kathy Kane. While the modern day Batwoman Kate Kane has gone above and beyond her former iteration, back in the day when she was created in 1956 as a means to give Batman a Batman family in the aftermath of the Comics Code Authority, and claims that Batman and Robin were gay, she was literally a fluff heroine whose utility belt included devices disguised as lipstick and compact mirrors. Yeah. When Detective Comics issue 485 came around in 1979, Kathy Kane was killed off unceremoniously, with the League of Assassins brutally murdering her. The whole story was a plot device for Batman to have a reason to go after the League of Assassins. Yikes. Moving on to number 8, Hank Pym and Pym-Tron. Oh, this one is sad. Hank Pym has one of the most ridiculous histories as far as Marvel characters are concerned. He has been through a lot. But most recently, we witnessed a whole new humiliating saga for Henry Pym in which he physically merged with Ultron, the robot he created in the comics that became one of the most memorable Avengers foes. During the Infinity Countdown story arc, Ultron managed to steal the Soul Gem, and a fragment of Hank's soul ended up trapped within the Stone Soul world. Now at the time the two had merged, but really it was just kind of Ultron wearing Hank's skin. While Hank was in there, he experienced an idyllic fantasy in which the Avengers had saved him and he was home reunited with his friends. In reality, a demon, the all-consuming Devondra, was busy consuming his soul. We haven't heard from him since. And it's been a little while and he might be gone forever, but probably not, cause comics. But even then, he'll probably be brought back and something horrible will happen to him. It's the Hank Pym way.
Number 7, Mark 52 HULKBUSTER car. Now if you're not familiar with this armor, don't worry, I also didn't know it existed until today. The Mark 52 is actually just the Mark 44 HULKBUSTER seen in the MCU, but unlike the MCU's take on the comics HULKBUSTER, this suit was also a car for some reason. Yep, that's right, what looks just like a simple flying car is actually a fully functioning Iron Man armor that could be deployed from the push of a button. Now in its vehicle form, the armor can achieve flight with the use of 2 repulsor turbines on its bottom, and then by pressing the button on the car's panel, the entire thing transformed into a HULKBUSTER armor in a matter of seconds. It's basically just a transformer. This marked the first time a suit of armor in the Marvel Universe continuity was adapted from the MCU. While certain artists' depiction of the Iron Man armor Mark 42 included a helmet design lifted from the standard Iron Man helmet outline used in the MCU, the Mark 52 is the first armor with a design taken straight and entirely from the films. Now why Tony decided he needed another HULKBUSTER at this point in time is beyond me, because he certainly was not fighting any big bad guys. But also why he thought it needed to be a flying car as well just makes absolutely no sense. Like, he really wasn't struggling for any money because he had just sold Stark Tower at the time, and I don't know, maybe he just wanted to see if it was possible. Either way, check it out for yourself in 2016's all new, all different Avengers number 1. Number 6, Ablative armor. This is another one of Tony's armors that wasn't supposed to be dumb, silly, or weird, it just kind of turned out that way. The Ablative armor was a prototype space armor designed for an impact-heavy environment. It's made up of tiled pieces that could be manipulated by a force field to dynamically protect him from projectile attacks, while also being used as ranged weapons as well. Basically picture those bicycle helmets that were specifically designed to break on impact, as a way to absorb the shock of the crash and thus protect the bicyclist's head. That's the sort of design Tony was going for with this armor, made entirely of little tiles that are designed in such a way to, you guessed it, break on impact. Once a tile is broken, it pops off and another one slides into its place, and new tiles are constantly being generated. And they're even capable of separating from the armor and, kind of just doing their own thing. There's no doubt that it's a unique concept and might be one that Tony would come back to later on, but it's a little bit clunky and overall just a little nightmarish to look at. Take a look for yourself, starting with its first appearance in 2003's Iron Man Volume 3, number 71. Number 5, 1602 armor. I think that everyone can see what Neil Gaiman and Adam Kubert were going for with the Iron Man design from the 1602 miniseries. It is a steampunk-esque design from the Middle Ages, and that sounds like a great idea on paper, but in execution it's actually very over-designed and somehow more complex in the Mark I armor. In the world of 1602, Anthony Stark is Lord Iron, a man who was taken captive during the Anglo-Spanish War and forced to make weapons, after being subjected to torture by this universe's version of Bruce Banner named David Banner. Later on, after Banner becomes the Hulk, Stark is summoned by the King of England to track Banner down. Needing some sort of protection in order to survive, Stark dons his iron armor that is powered by lightning bottles that provides him with super strength and near invulnerability alongside a couple other fun electricity powered gadgets. Stark eventually found the Hulk, and despite his pleas for forgiveness, Stark continued to attack him until a much bigger threat forced the two of them to team up. With a busy paint scheme and design, the 1602 armor ends up making Iron Man look a bit like a Doctor Who villain, which probably wasn't the intention, and that is why it's on this list today. Check it out in 2005's Marvel 1602 New World number 2. Number 4. Mark 6 Hydro Armor. So usually whenever Tony has to go underwater, he just dives right in and the armor protects him. However, in a few cases, Tony has had to dive pretty deep into the ocean, and obviously the pressure could crush even a regular armored suit with ease. So Tony wound up creating a special armor built to withstand those pressures, which became the Mark 6 Hydro Armor. The Hydro Armor has all the standard features of the regular Iron Man suits, but reconfigured to be more effective underwater. That means there's carefully adapted repulsor beams, more life support, grapples, a feature that fires an underwater electric shock, and the ability to release an inky chemical like an octopus. The armor is treated with lights and a bioluminescence to allow Tony to see in the pitch darkness of the oceans. It's also maneuverable enough for Tony to handle fighting whales, sharks, or the Submariner himself. He doesn't use it as often as other armors, but this suit proves Tony can handle pretty much any environment pretty well. Now, why is this armor dumb, you ask? Well, like I said, he doesn't use it too often, but also because he's wearing armor just inside another armor. You can imagine how uncomfortable that would be, and honestly, you'd think with those seemingly endless resources, he would just make one that just did everything. Check out the first Hydro armor in 1987's Iron Man number 218.
Number 3. Wasp, and that time that she fell out of a tree. Yes, this is actually a thing that happened. And yes, you probably guessed it, it happened during the Silver Age, when comics were at their wackiest. This case in particular featured Avengers member Wasp, who had escaped conflict in an exhausted state, seeking out the rest of the team in aid, because apparently back in the early days of the Avengers, she wasn't overly useful. In the process, when shrunken down, she's almost eaten by a hungry little bird. But after growing in size, the tree branch that she was perched on snaps, and she falls to the ground, unable to shrink down in time to save herself. So she lands on the ground and is knocked unconscious. Perhaps my favorite part of these panels is the very end, where the final panel reads, "But now we must leave the fallen Avenger as she lies silent and still in the lonely glen, for there are other urgent matters which concern us." God, jeez. Clearly even the writers didn't care about Wasp back then. Kinda harsh, guys. Up next, number 2, Wonder Woman and men. In Wonder Woman's earlier days, she had to endure a handful of stories in which her feminist prowess was shut down by silly plot devices. Like this one. According to the Amazonian law in the Golden Age, if a man ever binded Wonder Woman's bracelets together, she would lose her powers. Seems kind of counterintuitive to her character, doesn't it? Part of this was because of her creator William M. Marston's BDSM background and influence on Wonder Woman's characters. Case in point, when this occurred, Wonder Woman has a thought bubble that reads, "When an Amazon girl permits a man to chain her bracelets of submission together, she becomes weak as other women in a man-ruled world." For f***'s sake. I mean, yes, it was the 40s after all. We're just glad this silly stipulation has been retconned out of existence. Last but not least, in our number 1 spot, Deathstroke kicks the JLA's butts. This is arguably the Justice League of America's most embarrassing failure. Potentially. In the Identity Crisis storyline, Elongated Man's wife, Sue Dibney, is murdered, with Dr. Light presumed to be the murderer. Over the course of the story, it becomes apparent that members of the Justice League have been in on a whole controversial mind-wipe scheme that individuals like Batman were not privy to. It's a whole lot of moral grayness, and the way Sue's rape at the hands of Dr. Light was approached is something that the story gets a lot of heat for. Spoiler alert, the JLA's response was to mind-wipe everyone who was involved. Batman was also mind-wiped in order to prevent him from making everyone take the moral high ground. Anyway, that's all context. Dr. Light, who had been mind-wiped into a literal buffoon, hired Deathstroke Slade Wilson to help protect himself from the JLA. Deathstroke takes on Green Arrow, The Flash, Zatanna, Elongated Man, Hawkman, the Atom, and Black Canary. And guess what? Deathstroke won.
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have the zebra print suit. So ever since those party rock guys started shuffling around town, we've seen a lot of teens rocking the zebra print look. And while it might be a nice way to draw attention to your legs and maybe your fresh new clean white Vans, it's not the best look for, say, I don't know, a batsuit. So yeah, back in 1960, we got the pleasure of meeting Zebra Man, who's a villain that uses magnetic lines of force after he created a device that granted him these magnetic powers. So Batman and Robin both got a close-up look at this machine, and maybe Batman got a little bit too close because his suit and skin turned into the same zebra stripes that we saw. So now we have Zebra Batman. The only difference was he didn't have the belt that Zebra Man used, so he wasn't able to control said new powers. And it just looked, well, you know how it looks. And before we go on to number 9, if you guys could go ahead and smash that like button right down below, because it helps us out quite a lot here in the studio. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being fans. Now let's get back to some Batman suits. Number 9, 1940s serial batsuit. So the first ever live action Batman was played by an actor named Lewis Wilson back in 1943. And he was part of this 15-chapter serial from Columbia Pictures and included Douglas Croft as Robin as well. And I'll get into the suit design in just a sec, but let's just talk about the storyline first. I mean, we have the Batman during World War II, and he's trying to take down Agent Dr. Dacca and put an end to his plans. See, this was right after the attack on Pearl Harbor, and Dr. Dacca was operating a sabotage ring in Gotham City. So naturally, it's time to suit up. Now fans look back at the costume design and cringe. I mean, nowadays everything is so sleek and military, so when you see this, it comes off as a little silly. I mean, the arms and legs are baggy. It looks like a batsuit your uncle pulls out every Halloween. You know, the same one he's had for like 50 years. And the belt too? Dude, how the hell are you sneaking up on some crooks when you're literally wearing a disco ball for a belt? You'll blind them before anything. They won't even see you coming. They won't have eyes left. What does it for me personally is the uneven bat ears. It looks like a Great Dane when its ears are taped up when it's young. Number 8, Sir William. This one comes straight from Earth 9, and DC says that this universe still exists, which is pretty neat. So basically the idea was in 1997, DC Comics launched Tangent Comics, which was a new take on our hero's origins. We all love those. So as you guessed from the name Sir William, this Batman was fresh out of the Arthurian times. Sir William was a knight of King Arthur's Round Table who had to pay for some previous faults. See, Morgan Le Fay seduced him and convinced him to fight King Arthur using her magic. So, not a nice guy. He's actually probably great, I don't know. So he was confined to his own castle, which as far as groundings go, not that bad. I mean, I never got to hang out in Castle Bat when I got grounded growing up, so what the hell is this? Sir William discovered that he had the ability to project his spirit into his armor and have it walk free. Kind of like the pair of pants from Disney's Onward, you know, the pants that just walk around? It's kind of like that, except less sad. And as far as Batsuit designs go, this one is just messy. I mean, the spikes on the shoulders are just covering your blind spots, not to mention the added weight, the Mohawk helmet as well. I mean, I think it's gonna be a no from me in terms of design. But he's mastered sword fighting, okay? I'll give him that. He can sword fight, that's pretty cool. We all love swords.
Up next, number 7, Batman punched by Hal Jordan. Batman has long disliked members of the Green Lantern Corps. It took him a very long time to be willing to trust Hal Jordan after he had become Parallax in the Emerald Twilight storyline. While Hal was possessed by the villain, he ended up going on a rampage and killing several Lanterns and Guardians. And we all know how Bruce has major trust issues. In Green Lantern Rebirth issue 6, Hal has had enough with Batman's resentment and open hostility. Hal felt he had paid his dues. He sacrificed himself to reignite the sun after he was resurrected, and he's been working real hard to prove to everyone that he is one of the good guys. Batman doesn't entirely buy it, so what does Hal do? Well, he punches him in front of a bunch of other Green Lanterns. But to be fair, Batman kinda had it coming. He's long been an to not just Hal Jordan, but to other Green Lanterns in the past. Which actually brings us to our next number. In at 6, Batman punches a different Green Lantern. Long before Hal Jordan smashed his fist into the world's greatest detective's chin, Batman was on the giving end of a similar interaction. This time it was between the Caped Crusader and another Green Lantern, Guy Gardner, who is arguably the least like Green Lantern out there. 'Cause he's a bit of a dick. Anyway, this went down in the Justice League issue 5 with Batman being fed up of Guy's insufferable attitude. Batman was the one in charge of the Justice League International team, and Guy was just whining all the time. Guy makes it clear that he thinks Batman shouldn't be the leader of the team, and he's constantly sulking and complaining about how he should be the one in charge instead. So what does Bats do in order to establish his dominance? Well, he knocks Guy out with one punch in front of the rest of the team. Regardless of socking Guy in the face, Batman is still all business, getting a team meeting underway as Guy lies unconscious on the floor. The best part is the reactions from the rest of the team. And at number 5, Doctor Strange strangled by his cape. For this number, we're diving into an alternate universe in the Marvel Multiverse, the Ultimate Universe, Earth 1610. This universe is categorized by significantly grittier versions of our beloved 616 heroes, and during the penultimate event in that universe, Ultimatum, many a hero and villain experience particularly brutal demises, including Dr. Stephen Strange. While fighting against Dormammu, Strange is killed in one of the most absurd ways, by his own cloak. It's a move that's never been pulled by the ruler of the Dark Dimension in the regular 616, but in the Ultimate Universe it's something that surprisingly worked. Strange is strangled by his cloak, turning his face purple until his head explodes due to all of his blood being squeezed up into his head. Needless to say, it was pretty darn gruesome. Up next, number 4, Beast Boy and the drugged envelope. The Judas Contract is by far one of the most memorable Teen Titans stories in the group's history. During this story arc, a metahuman the name of Terra joins up with the Titans. Her and Beast Boy, aka Changeling, which is what he was going by at the time, developed a bit of a romantic relationship. It's then revealed that Terra has been playing the Titans all along, and is in cahoots with one of their biggest foes, Deathstroke. During the story's climax, the sinister duo uses various methods to subdue the Titans, one of which is really embarrassing for Beast Boy. They take advantage of his vanity, sending him dozens of letters with requests for autographs from fangirls. Gar is like super into this, and he gets straight to work signing pictures and licking envelopes. But turns out the glue on the envelopes has been drugged. As he realizes what's happened, he is knocked out cold. Up next,
number 3, all of the colors. So in 1937 issue 241 of Detective Comics, we find Batman on the cover with quite the dilemma. It's a dilemma we're all probably used to by now. He changes up the colors of his costume quite a few times in here, but why? Maybe he wore a similar color the day before, or hey, maybe on Wednesdays he wears pink. You never know. Or maybe this has something to do with the Comics Code Authority. See, in order to appeal to the public eye that comics weren't just this dark and gritty thing, they tried to change up his outfit a few times to keep it fun. Hey, it's pink now, look, we're having fun. So in this issue we have Robin hurting his arm, but we also have Batman sporting some fun new colorful suits. Eventually just putting all the colors together and rocking the infamous rainbow suit, which I'm a fan of. You know, if you can't pick one color, pick them all. Let's go. The only reason I have to include the rainbow suit on a list about the worst Batman suits is because it hurts your eyes to look at no matter what page it's on. See, some sequences show Batman punching a criminal and the yellow background blends in with the yellow part of his costume. Same goes for any background color really. Like if I was standing here in front of a green screen with all the colors on, green would just be really hard to focus on. It would blend in with the background. It's why we don't wear green in any videos, because it looks like that in the background. So the rainbow outfit was thought to be left in the late 50s, but it made a fashionable return in Francis Manipal's Trinity issue 1. Number 2, Stan Lee's Batman. The late Stan Lee had his take on the Caped Crusader back in 2001, and DC Comics asked him to reimagine all their famous heroes as if he had done it himself, which sounds like a pretty exciting event. So he came up with Wayne Williams, a cross between Luke Cage and, of course, Bruce Wayne. And we see these in action in Just Imagine Volume 1. So he was convicted of a crime he didn't do, and then learned a few skills in the slammer while he was serving. And then when he was released, he first made a costume and tried to make some money wrestling. Okay, sounds familiar, homemade costumes, some wrestling. If you're into a Batman that looks more like an actual bat, this is a great place to go. And finally, number 1, Bat Baby. Issue 147 of Batman, right on the cover we see regular size Robin rocking a regular size Robin outfit, and then we see a Bat Baby with a Bat Baby suit to complete the picture. Look out, it's Bat Baby and Robin? Question mark? That's what a bystander is shouting right on the front cover and all. So what's going on here? Why is Batman wearing jean short overalls? Why is he a baby? Also, why is he a child? Turns out Nails Finney brought them into a trap, and now Batman has shrunk down to the size of a small child. little baby. What's even better about this whole ordeal is that he still has the strength of a full-grown Batman. So he can kick your ass. He's just tiny. And the headlines were amazing in the news that week. Even in the comic, it says, "Gangland turns Batman into baby." And the photo is just Batman all moody standing there like, I don't know why he's moody, like he's still the same Batman, he's just small. Actually, you know what? I do know why he's moody. He's an infant. So Robin at one point even has to carry Batman to the Batmobiles, like carry him, because his little fat baby legs can't get him around so fast. So what does Batman do? He embraces it. He's like, fine, I'll dress like a baby. That's what you want, that's what you get. And he does well, or he does okay, rather. Yeah, one of the headlines that you see next reads, "Bat Baby does okay for a kid." I mean, he's okay. He just rode a balloon up into the air and then took out 3 criminals as a baby, but definitely just okay, A-okay. The only soft spot on this Batman is the one on the top of his head.
Number 10, Mark 1 Model 3. Okay, I want to get it out of the way right now that I am in no way talking smack about the design of the original Iron Man suit. I mean, although it was bulky and cumbersome, it's absolutely an iconic design, and more importantly, it was built with a purpose. Tony found himself in a bad situation and needed to escape, so he built an armor out of any materials available to him. Makes absolute sense. The quote-unquote upgraded gold version of this suit, however, not so much. Tony decided that the gray color of his armor was far too scary, or I guess he was kind of told that because the biggest inspiration for this redesign came from a date with Marion Rogers, who told Tony that Iron Man could really use a nice paint job, so that he'd better resemble a knight in shining armor. Tony obviously took this to heart, and the gold armor was born because he thought it would make him a more approachable hero. This design obviously didn't stick around for too long, as not long after he adopted the first iteration of the classic red and gold color scheme that the world now knows so well and loves. Fun fact though, the gold-plated armor is actually the reason Iron Man has the nickname the Golden Avenger. Check out the Mark 1 in its first appearance in 1963's Tales of Suspense number 39. Number 9, Mark 33 Submarine Argonaut. The Mark 33 armor isn't the first deep sea variant of the Iron Man armor, but it is pretty bad if I do say so myself. It is one of the 5 different Iron Man armors that Tony created from the Argonaut series, developed to augment his extremist-based armor technology. The Submarine Argonaut was a yellow armor that had clawed hands and feet, was capable of a little bit of camouflage, and had a deep sea range of about 2,563 meters. Basically, it was a pressurized suit that allowed Tony to operate in the deepest depths of the ocean. Now why is this a dumb armor, you ask? Well, mostly because Tony never actually got around to using it, or any of the 5 Argonaut suits for that matter. The armors were instead triggered via remote when the son of Ho Yinsen was shot and killed by SHIELD forces. This armor then attacked Namor and was later destroyed by Iron Man himself and left to sink to the bottom of the ocean, and has not been seen since. It was just kinda left there. Check out this sad underwater armor for yourself in its first appearance in 2006's Iron Man Volume 4, number 7. Number 8, Heroes Reborn. In 1996, Marvel created the controversial Heroes Reborn event/storyline in an attempt to reboot some of their characters. Tony Stark was no exception, and he was reborn in a new universe where he was even more of a selfish jerk than usual. And when he was wounded in an attack, Tony took up a special suit of armor to become a hero. Referred to in the storyline as the Prometheum armor, this rather unique looking suit was exclusive to the Heroes Reborn universe and honestly wasn't too well received. While most of Iron Man's armors tend to be clean and simplified in appearance, the Heroes Reborn armor took a different approach, with steel cords, lots of tubing, and 2 just massive exhaust pipes on the back that allow the armor to release heat. Though just a prototype, Tony was required to wear this armor's chest plate at all times in order to keep his heart beating and his lungs functioning properly. The suit didn't have an arc reactor and had to constantly be recharged in order to keep pumping. Overall, this armor was overly bulky and not visually appealing in the slightest. Instead of the more streamlined direction the armors had been going in, this one takes a step backwards, adding in musculature and separate plates that made it just way too complicated. Check it out for yourself in 1996's Iron Man Volume 2, number 1.
Number 7, Azrael. Better known as John Paul Valley, he is a vigilante who resided in Gotham City. See, after Bane broke Batman's back, he took on the mantle in the Nightfall story arc. See, John Paul was able to defeat Bane when he stepped up to the bat, pun intended, and he replaced the Caped Crusader. But in doing so, he made more than a few changes to the suit. Technical changes, but also, of course, design. So the final product had him looking like a cross between Batman and like an Autobot. He has the blue and yellow metallic armor, which looks like a hot mess already. And on top of it, he even added other gadgets in, like he added claws, dual mag weapons, and of course a cape that definitely does not work in terms of, aviation. That's not gonna fly. That's literally not gonna fly. Sure, he made the Nightfall story arc interesting, but if we're looking at just suits here, this takes the cake easily on this list. Number 6, oh yeah, Number 6, Batman Forever. Of course, on a list about Batsuits, we must bring up the suit that changed our childhoods forever. The one with the bat nipples. Sounds like a Friends episode that didn't make it. The late Joel Schumacher did Batman Forever in 1995, and Val Kilmer was a pretty fun Batman. Jim Carrey was a pretty fun Riddler. Tommy Lee Jones was... It was the 90s, okay? It was weird. The weirdest detail of this version of Batman's suit has to be this. I mean, we don't need nipples on the suit. We just don't need them. We don't at all. Even if they did somehow help with chafing, they would have to be perfectly lined up all day. I would be fixing that every 15 seconds. He said he sent costume maker Jose Fernandez photos of Greek statues and opted for more of an anatomical look. Hence the, shredded abs. And then when he saw the nipples on the suit, he thought, that's cool. Those right there, those some cool nipples. And he's still glad that he did it to this day. Well, so are we, because now we can talk about it some more in this lovely list. Number 5, Batman and Robin. Another late Schumacher film. Okay, another suit to talk about. It's kind of hard not to talk about the costume details when it shows all the details very close up. I mean, some of the shots we get here, I swear I can smell the fabric. Like, imagine if 3D was this advanced back then. Oh my god. You'd look in your popcorn and find Robin's ass. You're like, how did this get here? The suits changed from Michael Keaton's version, yet somehow they got worse? It got worse. So now George Clooney was rocking this hard plastic nipply looking suit, and even better, Alicia Silverstone as Batgirl and Chris O'Donnell as Robin sported the same design near the end of the film. Just in case, one new suit wasn't enough. I get it, I mean the new suits are supposed to prevent against frost damage, all that jazz, but how much damage protection do we need down there, guys? I mean, I know you're George Clooney and all, but like, that's a lot of armor for, Number 4, Jim Gordon. So after the events of Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's Endgame storyline, we found a new home for the Batman cowl. This time around, it belongs to former police commissioner Jim Gordon. See, his initial batsuit is actually pretty neat. It complements his lanky body, the all black look with the dark yellow outlines, and no cape. Thank God, I'd rather have Batman with no cape than a cape that looks like it got shredded by a velociraptor. Any day. I'm a fan of his entire look here, okay? Now, if we did a list of the best Batman suits, I would for sure throw this one on there. Now, unfortunately, he also has this military suit that he uses over top of that already existing cool one. They purposely designed it so it wouldn't look like Iron Man, and that worked. I mean, mostly. So the powerful armor got the job done, but it looked clunky. It didn't look nice. Fans didn't like the giant bunny ears, and they could for sure go without the War Machine type missile shoulder pads. Great storyline again, but seeing him disappear into that armor brought a frown to my face every time I turned the page.
Number 3, Mark 19 skin armor. Now it seems to me that Tony Stark is really into that whole metal but make it weird concept when it comes to his armors, and that is definitely seen in one of his earliest experiments with that concept, the skin armor. This suit was made of an adaptive liquid alloy that could simultaneously become as hard as adamantium and yet stay flexible enough to bounce and bend comfortably. It's a super cool concept and made for a pretty badass suit since it featured some upgraded versions of Stark's existing tech and was able to be controlled remotely. However, the way this suit formed is actually what makes it a rather dumb design. Basically, the flexible alloy only formed the gold sections of his armor and would only harden or form around the red parts on command, meaning that Tony would be running around like looking half dressed most of the time, which is pretty ridiculous. Check it out for yourself in 2001's Iron Man Volume 3 number 42 and let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Number 2, Iron Lantern. Hailing from Marvel and DC's Amalgam Universe comes Harold Stark, a combination of Hal Jordan and Tony Stark, who acts as a hero under the name of Iron Lantern. In this reality, Stark was injured after an alien ship crashed into Earth, and in an attempt to stay alive, he made an armor out of the wreckage of the ship, using the Lantern power battery he found as the power source. This suit not only allowed him to survive, it also granted him all of the powers of the Green Lantern. Using these newfound powers, Stark was operating as the Iron Lantern and took down many powerful enemies such as Madame Sapphire, Great White, and of course his arch nemesis, Mandarin Estro. Now I want to get it out of the way that I love the Amalgam Universe. I've talked about it in so many other videos, but honestly this hero just isn't doing it for me. Iron Man's calling card is that he's just a man, but with that ring, the iron seems pretty redundant and kind of eliminates the humanity imbued into Tony Stark. Check it out for yourself in 1997's Iron Lantern, number 1. And number 1, the Sniff Buster. Now you're probably sitting there like, what are you talking about? That doesn't exist. And I mean, technically you're right since I completely made up the name, but It'll all make sense once I explain the suit a little bit more. For a period of time, Iron Man's armor had a big old nose on the front of it. The true story is that Stan Lee, upon seeing an Iron Man cover, made an offhand comment asking, "Hey, where's the nose?" Meaning that he thought the helmet just looked a little bit too snug to Tony's face for a nose to fit. However, this comment was misinterpreted terribly by others as meaning that Stan wanted a nose on the armor, so it ended up being added. They forced an in-story explanation for the iron nose, with Tony stating that he redesigned the mask to allow for a bit more expression, which would thus increase the fearsome aspects of his character. To no surprise, no one in the Marvel Universe bought it, and many characters remarked how ridiculous Iron Man's nose hole made him look. Luckily, the nasal armor was relatively short-lived and has not re-emerged since. Go take a look at it for yourself in 1974's The Invincible Iron Man number 68.